Welcome, marvelous makers,
and art appreciators,
to the ArtSpace podcast,
brought to you by Lemon Street Gallery and ArtSpace,
located at 4601 Sheridan Road.
Pop on into your favorite citrus-themed art gallery early and often, frequently, and say hi to us.
Yes.
And then you can buy some art.
Yes.
And then say hi, and then say bye on your way out if you're a polite person.
Oh, please.
I hope you are.
Whatever. I'm your host, Shelby Nesman.
And I'm Jake Hoy.
And today we are with the stunning, magnificent watercolor artist and printmaker and educator. She's done so much. Lisa Englander.
Thank you for having me on. Yes. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us, Lisa. I met you about 15 minutes ago, and I feel like I've known you for 15 years.
Ditto.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I'm looking at your work here, and it's stunning. Yeah, is that the word you use, Shelby? Stunning,
magnificent. There's so many adjectives I could give this.
That's not any that I would have. I would have given it complex, difficult.
I just love staring at it. I get lost in your work a lot.
Well, and you're looking at examples of pieces from the last 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that I've been doing this that long, but I have.
It's longer than I've been doing anything.
Yes, but you're not even 40.
Don't brag.
Yeah.
Don't brag.
That's not a brag. Not that much longer, I will say. But no, yeah. So we want to pick your brain and learn a little bit about you and what makes you tick.
Ask away.
Yes, definitely.
We can hop right into our questions if you'd like.
Yes.
Oh, well, do we want to ask how she's doing? Usually
yes.
do a little.
Yeah, how are you doing on this rainy, mixed weather kind of day?
Kind of okay, I think. I can't believe that we have snow already.
It's crazy.
I can't believe we're so close to Thanksgiving and Christmas. Where did the year go?
Yeah, zooming by.
I can't believe that we're still fighting the pandemic, but
there we are.
But we have to move ahead, and
definitely.
That's important.
And you had a busy day in the studio.
I did.
She brought goodies.
Yes.
We don't always get goodies, but there's beautiful art here.
Yes.
as our brick gallery where we're recording is in transition
into our artistry show.
Yeah. We didn't have art on the walls, but now we do.
Well, and for those of you who don't know what my work looks like, you can find it lots of places and Google it online, but it's highly patterned and very colorful. I like working with illusion.
Oh, definitely.
The pushing and pulling of space and the manipulation of color. And I've always been told that I fool the eye because you can't really tell how it's made or where it came from. And I like that aspect of it.
I see where you're coming from.
And I definitely love where you're at currently, mixing. It's almost like a collage, and just really cool. You'll start off with like a print, but continue the pattern by drawing it or painting it. And just, it's really mixing and layering. And I think it's very interesting. So I love it.
Well, thank you. Yes. I'll describe it more as we
get more into it.
As we move on, I know you're going to ask me what some of my influences are, and I'm very influenced by a gentleman who wrote a book in 1906 called The Grammar of Ornament. His name was Owen Jones. And some of the drawings that Shelby and Jake are looking at right now are pieces from a damaged book that I received that I cut up, and then I've incorporated them into these small, they're like 8x10 drawings, where I've collaged and drawn with my old prints from graduate school and Owen Jones's printed pieces, and then I've marbleized and hand-painted marbleized paper, and they're really like the kitchen sink. Good way to describe them.
Yeah.
I like that. And folks at home that are itching to see what we're talking about can check out our social media, where I'm sure we'll be posting and sharing some of these in the days ahead.
Yes, definitely.
So keep an eye on that. The ArtSpace podcast on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah. So let's hop into some questions here. So what got you into art?
I grew up in New York City, and I was born into a very creative family, and everybody did something. The stories about my grandmother are legendary, that she would have pies and cakes on the windowsill
Oh.
every day when I would come home from school, and people would wait in line in our driveway. But my mother threw me in art classes at the Brooklyn Museum when I was 7, 8 years old. And I was oil painting in my in my early teens, my late 9, 10, but the early years. And I just can remember always doing creative things at a very early age. I played the violin for 17, 18 years. And then when it was time to decide what my discipline was, I liked printmaking. And so I worked on printmaking as a high schooler, and then as I went to Brooklyn College, I continued that as a medium and stayed with that until I graduated from graduate school and realized I was allergic to the chemicals.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was really sad. And had rashes all the time and didn't quite know why. And then we found that out. So the next several years were spent making printerly drawings. And that's what they've been called by the reviewers, is something as close to a print as I can make with paint and other mediums on paper. So that's what got me into art.
Oh, definitely.
I love it.
That's a common answer that we get in on the podcast, is having that family support system that kind of just guides you into it and
Leaves you there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't, there wasn't another option. And I was the only one thrust that way. Brothers were not, family members were not. They went on and did other things, but I was left to my own devices. And I was lucky. I was in a program in high school. Going back. I was in a program, a gifted program that took you to artists' studios. And so I went to like Barnett Newman's studio, and I can't even remember, Joseph Cornell's studio by the end of his life. And we met with artists. At that time, I was clueless to who they were. But it set you on a path. And so I followed that path. And you're going to ask me who major influences are. When I was in college, I studied with fabulous, fabulous painters because they were in New York. And they were great influences. And I'm still in touch with them to this day. We could talk about that more.
Oh, definitely.
And we will. But first of all, we're going even further back.
Yes.
What would you say? What would you say is your earliest art memory, or maybe some of your earliest art memories?
Like a certain project that really stood out to you.
Or maybe even just experiencing art,
Yeah.
I just remember the paintings that I did when I was at the Brooklyn Museum. And I would be sent on Saturdays, and I would come home with some canvas panel that I would paint in the class. And then it always invariably got framed, and they were all over the living room of our house. The other story that all of our friends know is I was sent with $1. And that $1 was spent in the Brooklyn Museum gift shop. And I would buy some little West German creature, like a bug band animal or a little bunny, which we still have.
Oh.
And I have a symphony now of animals playing instruments from your, and so the whole thing was educating a child. And I would come home and show my parents what I had painted, and then I would show them what I had selected, which I think set me on a wonderful path for creativity, because my parents and grandparents were interested in what I was doing. And then they were encouraging me about a visual selection that I could make with my $1.
Oh, yeah. and show that impact that it
Yeah.
is cyclical of supporting others while producing yourself.
Absolutely.
So definitely love that.
The art community in a nutshell right there, isn't it?
Yes. We can't have wonderful budding artists without wonderful art appreciators like you guys, Jake.
Yes. Finger guns.
Yes. Thank you. So, hopping into the next question. Who?
Oh, this one's been teased.
Yes.
Let's get into it.
Ooh.
Who or what would you say had an influence on your art?
I've been seeing art shows since I was 8 years old. Early memories of going to see exhibitions at the Metropolitan Museum or the Brooklyn Museum are plentiful. But as a pattern painter, I would have to tell you that the work of Matisse is key in what I do. It bears very little relation when you look at my work, but the pattern structures that he does, the positive and negative forms, the cut pieces, have always been a really big influence. I look at the work of William Morris,
Yes.
who is a British, I'm holding up a book, so you know what I'm talking about,
Yes.
who is a British pattern artist from the turn of the, well, not the turn of the last century, the century before. And I like the interplay of patterns a lot. I'm also influenced, because I do lots of line work, by the work of the late Edward Gorey. And some of you know his work from Masterpiece on public television.
sure. Yeah.
He does the line drawings in the beginning.
Yeah. Thought I recognized that.
Yeah, you all do, and there's less of it now than it used to be. But I always liked the influence of his fine pen and ink work, and then his very tongue-in-cheek. There's a sense of humor to it, so that's been an influence. And then if you ask me who contemporary, somebody living that will send you all to the internet to look up. I love the work of Walton Ford. And Ford is a contemporary artist who works with large animals. They kind of look like redos of Audubon prints, but they're a little more sinister. So go and look at those. They're really, really interesting people. So they've had a big influence. The three teachers that I worked with at Brooklyn College that have been influenced, the late Lee Bontecu, who died last week, a really important feminist sculptress who believed that sculpture shouldn't live in the middle of the room. It could bounce off the walls and grow off the ceiling, and she was a great influencer. I also studied with the artist Lois Dodd, whose work you can see through Alexander Gallery in New York, and she's primarily now, although she still lives in New York, I think of her as a painter from Maine, and she's in that school of kind of rough-hewn imagery that and a great colorist. And then my fourth and final professor at Brooklyn College was the great Philip Pearlstein, who takes the human nude and makes it look monolithic and like the Acropolis, and they just have a massive totemic presence, which I think works for me.
Well, awesome. Because
Now you have to go look those three people up if
Yeah,
you're
we've got
not
some
familiar.
homework for
Yeah.
the listeners at home.
But they all sound so exciting.
They
so
were,
I
and they were
can't wait.
great teachers who, I mean, I've always had great teachers all through graduate school and undergraduate. And I think if you're looking for a teacher, you have to be able to communicate with them. I think if you sit in a classroom like a bump on a log, you don't really get the full effect. If
Right.
you're somebody who really wants to learn from your teacher and you approach them, I think you'll.
I think that's especially with art because there's other kind of personal ideas and everything that you need to break down through some dialogue, especially as a student. I remember needing to talk and just sometimes you just need to get the ideas out to someone who is has done a lot, has a lot of experience and a lot of artistic guidance. So
A
definitely,
good teacher will do that.
Yes.
A good teacher will do that. I've taught for 38 years between UW Waukesha and Parkside and Worcester Museum and just about anywhere. Anybody that will hire me for a workshop, I'll teach here if you want me to teach. But I think the quality of teaching is so varied, and I think you have to really want to influence your students if it's something that they want. So look for good teachers, look for communicators, and people who are willing to spend the time with you.
Definitely. We love that. And another kind of tool in the toolbox for the support system of continuing your art and working through those ideas. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I agree. Hear, hear. Well, our next question, we've touched on this already, but let's go. Let's deep dive. Who are some of your favorite artists? And that would include like local artists as well.
Well, I've mentioned some of them already, but there are a lot of. Remember, I work at the Racine Art Museum, which is a craft museum.
Okay.
And so for the last 20 years, my hands have been in glass, clay, metal, wood, fiber, and polymer, which everybody kind of doesn't know what to do with anymore. And so I would be misinforming you if I didn't tell you all 10,000 pieces at the Racine Art Museum are my favorite. And by my favorite artists, I like making things with the hand. When I'm not painting, I'm trying to create things. There are lots of regional artists that I think do wonderful work. I'm happy to be a participant in Watercolor Wisconsin for the last 40 something years. And I would say, Milwaukee's Pat Hitson is a great influence. She's a colorist, and she works large, and it juxtaposes abstract shapes. I think she's wonderful. Also, the Mequon artist Jean Crane is a particular favorite of mine because she works abstract and realistic, and she works with a limited palette of 5 colors in watercolor and gets this myriad of a million hues that I if I live to be 100, I'll never understand how she does it. And then I'm also really fond of the artist Joanna Paleman, a Milwaukee artist whose tongue-in-cheek humor about what she does, there's always a pun that goes with the piece, makes me feel that she's thinking beyond the creation of just a simple piece. There are a million local and regional artists like Bill Reed and Alex Manley, whose work I just think is divine. And so I would say come and shop your local galleries and regional museums for the best selection of year-round and holiday merchandise.
Oh, wow. Definitely.
That's totally right. Yeah, that's the thing to remember here. All these names, you can buy their work.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
The wonders of being a local artist.
Well, I think I bought my first piece when I was in graduate school. I was asked to run a gallery that used to be at the old Gimbels building on Plankington. And it stayed open for about 3 or 4 years. And at the end, the company that owned it in New York said, just give the things away and liquidate it. And I was already involved with the Worcester Museum, and they got some pieces, and the Milwaukee Art Museum got some pieces. And they said, and why don't you pick a piece that you can buy? And I did. And I bought a Christo print back then, and I still have it. And that's my first piece. So, are you going to ask me about acquiring? That's a whole separate thing.
Yes.
You should always look at other people that influence you. If you don't have anybody, you're not looking in the right place. You always have to have an influence, whether it's somebody in the arts or music or in literature or in the cooking field. There has to be somebody that influences what you're doing, alive or not.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, so you gotta not model yourself, but you have aesthetics and you have your own journeys, and you can't reinvent the wheel. So
Maybe you need a jumping off point, right?
yes, yes, something to kind of guide you along the way.
I think
the
so.
journey. So definitely.
I think so.
Well, if I can just hop in here,
go
there was something that came up a little bit ago, and so we're going to hop into Educate Jake here. That's one of our favorite, maybe our only segment. But you mentioned that Racine Art Museum is a craft museum, and I was wondering what's that mean? What's the difference between an art museum and a craft museum? Like,
The focus of the Racine Art Museum is not paintings.
okay,
It's the focus.
You're just like it's a big question you asked.
The focus is works that are made primarily by contemporary living artists.
Okay.
Or some of them are no longer, by the hand.
okay,
So they're things that are created mostly by building and forming. So the focus is works made out of glass, which is blown,
oh, okay,
clay, which is thrown or slab built, metal, which is fabricated, very difficult,
Yeah.
wood, which can be turned or carved,
yeah,
Yeah.
and polymer, which is a almost like a clay, but it's rubber based, and that has to be, if you have, this, if you have blue and yellow polymer, it does not make green. It doesn't combine in my last
It's
meter.
not like Play-Doh. Yeah.
that's interesting.
And fiber.
Oh, definitely.
Fiber.
Thank you. For all the quilters and
Sure.
knitters and weavers out there, which is fiber, which is built. I think of quilts which are built exactly like my painting, by applying and adding. Anyway, the Racine Art Museum focuses primarily on things made by the hand. Not that your child could make, but that
Right.
things that your child might learn how to make in a class or at a cultural center. The secondary focus is works on paper, so that includes photographs, prints, drawings, and watercolors, and they are shown together because that's how you live with stuff. You'll have a beautiful bowl on your dining room table. You'll have handmade mugs and dishes, and then there'll be a great watercolor up on the wall. It's how I live with things. So I was really happy when the museum declared its focus in the mid 1980s that it was things that I love to live with, and I still do. So I run the museum store there, and we don't have a lot of walls, and we don't. We really focus on things made in that media.
That makes
Does that
total
help?
sense. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, come and look.
You have educated Jake.
Oh, yay.
Mission
Yay,
accomplished.
yay, yay.
Ding, ding, ding. Jake has been educated. Alrighty, and we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back.
And we are back. Thanks for sticking with us, folks,
Yes, hi, hello.
through that horrible break when
Oh.
we weren't learning about awesome art.
Darn it.
But yeah, we're back, and I've got a question for Lisa.
Well, we continued to talk through the entire break. So
Well, we did,
Yes.
but they didn't. They had to suffer the interminable silence of 3 seconds?
Yeah, maybe.
But anyways, we're back, and Lisa, what's your motivation to create?
I don't think I have a choice. I find that when I have any spare time, I'm sketching somewhere or drawing on something, and every Post-it note pad, every shopping list pad has something
Yeah.
We were sitting in a financial lecture the other night, and I was supposed to be taking notes about investment, and I started drawing what I thought would be the next painting. And I think that's true of most serious artists, that and this is not only artists but writers, musicians, that need to keep creating is overwhelming. And I find that I'm happiest when I'm in my studio. If I'm not painting, at least I'm thinking about what I want to do next. And that keeps me moving forward. And that's a good thing.
It's just kind of a natural drive to keep going and
That's interesting.
keep doing. So, yeah.
It honestly, and it sparked something in me that I didn't even realize that I do. If I can take it off topic
Oh,
for
go
a
for
second,
it.
I don't know if you know, but I'm
If
a
it educates. Go
yeah,
ahead.
oh,
Yes.
yeah. I'm going to talk now. But I'm a meteorologist. I have a degree in meteorology from the University of Oklahoma. I run a local weather page where I talk about the weather. And sometimes I'll just go, boy, it hasn't rained in a while. And then a normal person would go, anyways, move on with your day. But then I go, but how long has it been? And, what's the record in November for the longest it's been without, that kind of thing. And I'll just go and dig into it. And before I know it, I have a couple paragraphs written about that. And I post that on my weather page. And I didn't even mean to. It just came out on accident. And I wonder, maybe that's my own little version of that.
Your internal passion and drive just said,
I
hey.
never thought about that until you said that.
Yeah, but when you sit and you listen to, CBS Sunday Morning and they're interviewing Ian McEwan or Portnoy or somebody, they talk about how every day they need to sit and write. And, Stephen Sondheim was no different. Every day he was at the piano playing with lyrics. So I think, and I don't know if it's just creative people. As I said, my grandmother was baking every day. She didn't really have a choice about it. I think people find what makes them happiest. If you listen to the Michelle Obama interview the other night, it was like she's crocheting now or knitting, and that people need to find outlets, whether they be creative or purposeful, and
Yeah.
Both.
and that's what I've done.
Yes, definitely. So kind of tying into that, what would you say you pull your patterns from exactly? Because I know you have a lot of a lot of reoccurring elements in your pieces. So where do you kind of get that from?
Well, I've mentioned already that a big influence is pattern eye. I started my interest back low. It's back before, but the big pivotal was studying with Nancy Lurie at the Milwaukee Public Museum in the late 70s. I worked in the anthropology department. I worked on the now that the museum is building a new building, and I worked on that Native American thing with the horse and the Indian in the middle, but I did the cases around it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so part of my job was to pick the Native American pottery that went on display. And the more I looked at the pattern work of the Navajo or the Zuni patterns, the more interested I got in pattern work. And that translated into what I was doing in the printmaking studio. And that has continued. I look at patterns from prehistoric time to the present, from every culture that I can find. And when I struck up with the Grammar of Ornament from 1906, I really got a chord for me that I could go back 1,000 years, and then I could go by culture. And so I've reinterpreted them. I don't use them exactly because that
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm trying to.
You're not comfortable with that. Yeah.
No,
Yes.
I wouldn't do that. But I'm influenced by.
Yeah, definitely.
But not replicating. And so I use all those patterns in what I do to create a level of depth and surface tension, color balance that makes me create my work.
Yeah, and basically just adapting the pattern to break the illusions, because that's more what you're trying to do, is play with that space. So adapting the patterns to do the space breaking.
Well, and the pushing and pulling of space.
yes.
Either by the use of the patterns or the interplay of the color. Certain colors
Yeah.
will push things forward. And that's partially my doing, but partially the way your eye sees varied hues of color.
Well, cool. I love it.
Fascinating.
Love it.
We have the benefit of having some artwork in front
Yeah, I
of
was
it, and
gonna
it's
say.
like I'm explaining it as I'm.
I'm going to reiterate, folks at home, definitely check out our social media because we're going to
Yes.
post these and you're going to
We'll
be able
snap
to
some-
look as we talk. So
Snap some pictures. So
do that.
yes,
Unless you're driving, then don't look at it.
Yeah,
Don't
Wait-
look at it. No.
Maybe pull over on the
No,
side
no.
of the road.
And don't even do that. I have works on the internet. You can
yeah.
look at it there, and
So, yeah. Jumping into the next question, we're gonna get into our fun little question.
We call
here.
this the fun section.
Yeah, the fun.
well,
segment.
you didn't. Wait a second. Let's go back one
yeah.
step.
Oh.
Yes.
You asked about the patterns, but you didn't ask what the key subject is in the paintings.
That's true. What is the key subject? in
Well,
your-
as a child,
Yes.
I lost my mother at a very early age. And when I was going through her things, the one thing I found that I had no explanation for was a hand fan. Not important. It was a plain sandalwood fan. But it was very sentimental, and it was the only reference I had for her. And so I've continued to use that as the pattern breakup in a lot of the paintings. So you'll see it as the way I break up space. Over the years, it has morphed out of a sandalwood fan into an advertising fan. And now it's morphing again into more of a ginkgo leaf because it's a personal thing that doesn't necessarily need that reference. But when I do shows, I'm sometimes asked to show fans, and I have a rather large collection now of fans that date back to, I want to say, the middle of the 1800s.
Ooh.
Somebody recently gave me a Frank Lloyd Wright Imperial House fan that's the size of a baseball diamond. It's huge.
Wow.
And
That'll cool you down.
Yeah, that'll cool you down really fast. And it's round. And I don't use rounded shapes, but the patterning on it is still interesting. Okay, let's hit that fun section.
Well, I have to say I am a fan of that.
Oh,
conversation.
gosh.
Thank you. Mm.
And I, going back to it, I do see you using it as you adapt it in different forms, either to transition to a different pattern or to almost create texture
Were
too.
you aware of it before I said that?
Yeah, I was like, I see the shape and I see that reoccurring shape, but it didn't dawn on me that it was a fan. I thought it was more kind of like a floral reference, like with the arts and craft movement was a little more like that. That's the connection I made with it. But now that I know that there's a personal connection, it means so much more.
There's some pieces I'm trying to break out of that a little bit more, and I'm having some trouble with that. But you're going to ask me what pieces I have done during the pandemic, and everything's been black. So I've had some great success doing a series of black paintings in the last year or two, and I think the fan shapes and the patterns are less noticeable in that because the paintings are so monochromatic and not so vividly colored. So interesting direction.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I like where you're going with it. I like everything you do. So, I mean,
You're very sweet.
oh, well, thank you.
I'll pay you later.
Oh.
All right.
Now that we could jump into the next question, we've fully fleshed out the motivation and everything. If time and money were no object, what would your dream project be?
Oh, I'd like to be the Martha Stewart of my medium. I would like to see these made into rugs or needlepoint tapestries or every time I take one of my designs and I put it on a coffee mug or a journal, I get lots of really good reaction. As you know, because I've mentioned this, I have been approached in the past to have that done. We recently had a painting put on a blanket. And now we can't decide who's going to get it for Christmas, if anybody, or whether the dog's going to get
Yeah, oh
it.
God.
But I think the ultimate kick for an artist is to see their image commercially used with their permission,
Oh, yeah.
of
Yes.
course. On something, and the idea of needle pointing one of these is something that's really appealing to me. The late artist Ruth Gow, who taught at UWM, was in the process of working to have her designs made into these exquisite rugs. If you want to look her up online, her last name is spelt Kao, and her first name is Ruth, but she was doing wonderful abstract patterns that were being made into these sumptuous silk rugs. The Racine Art Museum has several in their collection. And I was talking to Ruth back in the mid 80s about having my designs done, and fortunately her untimely death sort of interrupted that. And was sad about that.
Aw. But touching on wanting to transform your artwork into different mediums, I think that's a good sign of a strong body of work, is when you can translate it into so many different things. Because I think this would be beautiful in fiber. You could get more of a like, you'd want to touch it a lot more. I know you would if it was in fiber. But I just think all these mediums would translate well with your work as well. But you also work in so many other mediums through your collaging and printmaking. And so I think it's just a good testimonial to your strong body of work.
Well, what a kind thing to say. I don't know why I had that painting made into a blanket. I don't know what possessed me, but I think I wanted to see it in another medium and to see how well it translated. And it translated pretty well.
I'd snuggle with it.
Yeah. So maybe you will get it.
Oh, dang. Dang. Oh, presents galore here.
I'm a little jealous over here. I'm not gonna lie, but that's okay. No, yeah, I love that. You're the Martha Stewart of your.
Your medium.
Oh, she'd probably hate that.
No. But I think it's nice goal to have. Yeah, branch out, do different stuff. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
All right. So next question. What's the funniest comment you've heard about your art?
This is the funniest question that you've asked me, and the funniest comment I've ever had, and I've had it more than once, is, why do you waste so much white paper? Those of you who are familiar with my work, and these are examples that don't have a lot of white, know that I do paintings where a third of the paper is left unpainted, and partially because my work is very angular, and I think the colorful spaces jut into the white space. And so I think the white space becomes as important as the spaces with color. Meteorologists kind of like the area around the rain and the snow, that it energizes. And for me, white space really energizes. I also love paper. I love the feel of watercolor and printing paper. And for me, the negative spaces are just as beautiful as the painted space. So that was the funniest comment, I think. And I thought, well, I could fill the whole
Thing up,
paper
yeah.
and charge it 8 times more. But and then the funniest thing anybody ever did with my work was hang it sideways.
Oh no! Oh no!
And it was okay. It worked that way, but it was one of the
That one?
It
Okay.
was my work is very vertical. And most artwork is not. Most
Right.
artwork is, like 3-to-1 horizontal, because
Landscape,
the space over your sofa is always horizontal. And
Right.
Yeah.
I've always liked to work vertical because my floral forms within my fans fall,
Oh, okay.
so that everything cascades down.
Yeah.
And so it's always logical to me to have things falling. And several years after that client bought that painting, he called me back up and he said, you were right. I've hung it vertically. It fits better. And I didn't do I didn't do that catty thing I thought about doing. And I said, well, thank you for letting me know. But I thought it was interesting that they felt comfortable. And since then, I've seen other people who have hung my work sideways or upside down. If somebody who's hung a pear upside down.
Oh, that's kind of hard to do.
Yeah, well,
Maybe that's
it means you have
purposeful.
to move the wire and the apparatus, so you know that you're changing something. But I think it's a compliment in a way that people are so comfortable with it
Yeah.
that they see it a different way and it's more dynamic for them.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say maybe they're laying on their couch looking at it sideways while they're
But they
laying
want to
down.
see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The correct way.
Yeah. And I sell to a lot of, techie, brainy people with,
Nerds.
nerds.
Yeah.
I sell to a lot of nerds. And I think nerds, see things the way they want to. So however they hang it is really okay with
Yeah.
me.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, I could see why you would want it to want to have it a certain way, having the shadows work, because you're working with an illusion. So
I'm working with, I'm creating a complete illusion.
I understand how it is important, but hey, it's your piece. do what you want.
Went with it. Well, I also get a lot of questions about, so you do this and cut these out, and then,
Like, no, that's all watercolor.
and I say no, it's like all one solid piece of paper, and they'll say, but it's 29 by 42, or it's 40 by 60, and I say, yeah, and if you stand up and you'll look in the center of the painting, you'll see it may not be painted quite as elaborately as the edges because I can't reach the center as easily. And so doing 40 by 60 paintings, when I said to you before that I work kind of on an angle table, is the only way I can adequately get to the center and work it.
That can be kind of hard with watercolor because it wants to. Gravity is a thing.
It is. Take a class. You'll get it.
Yeah.
I work very dry.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That probably helps with the pigment and everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
awesome.
Before we move on, I have a confession to make.
Confess.
When I was putting together this cheat sheet that we have in front of us,
It's a beautiful cheat sheet.
I may have cropped a little bit in order to make stuff fit.
no.
So I apologize for cutting out that all-important white space that we were just.
No, I think the one with the vessel.
Yeah, that's the one. You got it. That's the one I cropped.
Yeah, you took off some of the top, but
That one doesn't have. Yeah, I've got the card in front of me.
Well, only a little bit, but I did. Just to make it a little. I do that sometimes. But so I apologize.
Get back. These are very difficult to compose.
Yeah.
Because I'm showing you one now, this one, and do you see how these look like they're tipping out? Mm-hmm. They're not. It's the way optically you see them. So there's always a little bit of difficult balance with how to get the paintings
It
to.
displayed, and
Yeah.
if you like a card that is being showed.
But they're very definitely vessels.
Oh yeah.
And if somebody hung that upside down, I'd kind of go,
What are you?
They look like cups.
Big chalices.
know what they'd look like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what it
that
would look like.
I just flipped it upside down for the folks at home.
Alrighty, we're moving on to the last big question here. So what are some of your thoughts on the local art community and something you would like to see, whether that's Racine or Southeast Wisconsin as a whole?
That's a really unfair question to ask somebody who was born and raised in New York
How
City.
dare you, Shelby?
And who has chosen to spend the last 40 45 years here in Wisconsin, I made a decision years ago not to go back. Not only because I got married and I was happy, but this seemed like a logical place that needed strong art advocates, and I am one of those. I think there are wonderful things going on, not only in southeastern Wisconsin, but the whole Wisconsin, Chicago, Minneapolis corridor that I'm happy to be an advocate for. I'm always surprised to tell you when I talk to people who come to this area that they can start in Kenosha with Lemon Street Gallery,
Well, thank you.
the Anderson Art Center. They can come to Racine's, go to the Worcester Museum, go to the Racine Art Museum, head up to Milwaukee, go to Walker's Point, the Milwaukee Art Museum. If they want to go Madison, they can go that way. If not, they can go up to the Kohler and see the Kohler Art Center and the wonderful new museum they've built there as well for outsider art. And they can, end up at the Woodson in Wausau. And there's a lot to do and a lot to see. And although it has a regional flair, it's also very national and international. And I think that's good. I have also thought that this area of the country, and I'm talking about Kenosha, Racine, really beats itself up. We think we don't have a lot to offer. And we are our own worst enemy. And if we could get a good, positive outlook about what we do, I think it would help us a lot. I do wish there were a little bit more cohesion between Kenosha and Racine so that we're not constantly at odds with each other. And I think that would be good. I know I can speak about what the Racine Art Museum does in offering its fellowship program, which anybody from Kenosha or Racine can enter, and that's a great program supported by the Osborne and Sekich Foundation, and there are great shows that you can participate between Parkside and Anderson and you guys, and I think we should just keep doing it, and the fact that you're having me, a Racine artist, talk today on a Kenosha program is a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Well, I have to push back on that. We're not just a Kenosha program. We're between Milwaukee and Chicago. We got to think of a name for that.
I know.
Yep.
Well,
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
Is that going to catch on?
No, you got to put a K in there.
Milwaukee.
But when you Google podcasts, you guys come up, and so you're not exactly invisible in this. And I think this is a wonderful, wonderful program that you're offering.
Oh.
It is. It's just
thank
wonderful.
you. Yeah, there's so many local artists that we just want to give them a voice and talk
Honestly,
about their art.
we have an easy job.
Yep.
We're never going, man, who we got? Nobody. But
No.
Left and right
not
here.
at all. It's,
Well, it sounds to me like you're never at a loss for people to ask
No.
to do this, and
Okay.
and there are tons of wonderful arts advocates all over this area.
and we
So-
need more of them. And
Yes. So basically, just give them a platform to share their artwork, and because not everyone knows who's in the community, because venues can get a little muddled and stuff. There's a lot of voices,
And Shelby, it's a hard road, and there's never enough funding. There's never enough grant money. There's never enough time. And I think the more we can play together, the better it is. As I mentioned to you before, we're happy to see so many artists from out of this area looking for studio space between Kenosha and Racine. So we're bringing in a lot of people that way.
definitely.
Lots of things are expanding and turning up that I think will be great for us in the next few years.
Yeah, I think we're on a good path. It's just keeping at it, really, and seeing where we can maximize our efforts. And I think this podcast is one of them. So
and just
definitely.
working together overall. Like, you know, we're not in competition.
No.
A rising tide lifts all ships. So,
Yes.
as I always say.
Yes.
But, you know, it's, yeah. And for non-artists to become part of the community as well, you know, it's,
Yes.
come to these shows, these galleries, these exhibits, these museums, come and be a part of it.
And learn.
Yeah.
Yes.
And learn, you know, and start getting out again and doing this. As I mentioned before, I was down in Chicago at the University of Chicago campus and saw a wonderful show this weekend at the Oriental Institute and a show at the Smart Gallery called Monochrome that's on through January 8th.
Yep.
Wonderful. And then I was at the Art Institute seeing a wonderful show on the feminist artist Bridget Riley, and I would recommend that as well as the David Hockney show to anybody that's looking for something to do over the holiday weekends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go pop your bubble. Get out there
Pop that bubble.
Yes.
Shelby's new catchphrase.
and get out there and view some art. Get a different perspective. It's always refreshing. So
It is.
get out there.
It's educational.
Yes. It's inspirational.
It's enriching. Who's going to run out of adjectives
Oh,
first?
gosh. Definitely not you.
Am I wrong? Were those not adjectives? I'm not a grammar person. I don't know.
Either way.
I'd like to mention that I have a show coming up at
Yeah.
OS Projects in downtown Racine. And I've been working on that show for 2 years in the studio. Right now, all
Wow.
the paintings are black, but I hope to get out of the black in the next couple of weeks. And that should be opening May of 2023. And I invite you all to come
Oh, for sure.
and see.
Yes, I'll definitely be there. And
Yes,
that's
you will.
Yes, I will. I'm penciling it in. I've never been there yet. It's I don't know, moving in the middle of the pandemic really kind of just put me in a bubble and I need to pop my bubble.
It did. I think it made us all, you know, home and work, and we sort of lost those creative outlets that we do. But I see some people, our attendance at the museum is up, and it's primarily people who've never been out before or never been to the museum before. We find this really interesting that I think there's this new generation of people who are looking to experience, and we invite you all to come and visit our galleries and our little shops, and
Yeah.
We're here
as
for
we
you.
move forward. Yes, yes.
And we've noticed that here too. It's just a lot of first timers.
A lot of first timers.
It's so weird.
And we
I
love those first timers.
I shudder to think where the old timers are.
Oh no.
I don't think they're getting out quite yet.
No.
Yeah, there's been some usuals that we have here that they're still not ready. And it's like, hey, take your time, do it when you want to do it. And as long as you're okay.
Does Lemon Street have anything planned for the holidays?
For the holidays, we have our artistry show. Thank you
Tell
for
me about that.
bringing that up to me. So we invite local artists to participate, so they don't have to be a Lemon Street member. So people from our community to come in and make a show that is holiday themed, artwork that is like ornaments or I wouldn't say Christmas specific, but
Do you have to make them here?
nope, you don't. You
Bring
just
them in.
bring them in, and so you could be a Lemon Street artist or a non-member, which is $25. So it's really fun. It's a really amazing show, and
Are the works for sale?
yes, all works are for sale.
Yeah, that's the giftable art show after all. So, yeah, if you're listening and you come on in and you can do your Christmas shopping here
Oh, definitely.
and enjoy the arts all in one go.
Yes, so there's so much going on here.
It's good. It's a good place.
Oh, well, thank you.
And parking is easy and it's easy to find.
Oh, yes.
It's as we always hear, it's I drive by it on Sheridan Road all the time, so you know where it is.
Yeah, get your butts
Just
in
come
here.
on in.
And what are your hours?
We are, thank you for asking me these questions. We are open Thursday through Saturday, 11 to 5, and Sunday, 11 to 4. So we'll see you guys here.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Now you have no excuse for not coming in. You know how, when, where, why, everything.
And as you do your holiday shopping, remember to support the arts. It's
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
it's most important.
Yes.
We need you.
Yes, we need you. So we can find you at your upcoming show. We can find you at the museum. So yeah, there's a lot of places we can find you. We can find you on the internet. You're pretty easy to find, so that's good. Alrighty, and for us, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, our very own YouTube channel. So go check us out. And you can find us on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, and we're working on that TikTok.
Yeah, look for that over the holidays, maybe.
Yeah, I'll probably get that done during our break, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
I don't know, but
We want to thank Would You Kindly for our awesome theme song. We want to thank Josh, our editor.
yes,
Why don't we thank him every episode?
I don't know. I feel bad.
Thank you, Josh, for editing
you,
our
Josh.
podcast. You're amazing.
Yes.
Josh Granson.
Yes.
Look what I've started.
Just shouting everybody
A
out.
whole lot of love in
Yes.
the building tonight.
It's coming up on Thanksgiving. We're very thankful right
We
now.
are exactly. Boom.
Alrighty, and I think that wraps it up for this episode, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.
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 Depression, addiction, the thrill that you seek. Our restlessness cages the fire we need. We're here to inspire.